What is up YouTube? In this video I'll be showing you how you can create entities in Mendix platform. So what are entities? Entities basically are real world objects. For example, like users. So users is an entity for your application. Okay, then the user can have the name, age, email, and so on. So the user is an entity. Okay, similarly the address is another entity, okay, in which you store an address for a user. For example, what is the city, the state, the country, and so on. So in this video, let's see how we can create entities for your application in Mendix. So let's suppose so to create an entity we will have to go to this domain model. Okay, so by default whenever you create an application, these three things are going to be up for you. Okay, so you have to create all the entities for your application inside this domain model. So in order to create entity, you have to select this what do you say, a box type structure. So you can drag it and drop here, then you can double click on it and give it a name for your entity. For example, I am creating an entity for users, so this is a user. Okay, and there are some system members. For example, you want to store created at, change it at, owner, and change it by. So what does that what this mean is that whenever an object created, we have to store these four things. For example, when the object is created, okay, when the user is created, or when it is updated, who created the user, who updated the user, and so on. Okay, so generalization and image, you can give an image to your instance for your entity, okay, to look like so that it can visually looking good. So that's not the scope of this tutorial. The generalization is like you have to you can inherit a model also. For example, there is a model, okay, which store what do you say, some kind of a data, and you want to use it in the user model. It's like an inheritance in object oriented approach. Okay, so now we can add attributes to this user entity. For example, our user have a name, and you can give it a documentation and what is the type of this attribute. So these are the number of attributes that we can use in Mendix. There are string, there is integer, enumeration, decimal, date time. So you can explore all of these, but for our case, name is a string, and we can also define the length of this attribute. For example, is it a limited value or it is an unlimited? So unlimited means you can add as many as character you wanted. Okay, and if it is a limited, then you have to specify what is the maximum length for this attribute. Okay, so calculated and default, you can directly store this value. If you selected the store, then the system is just store this value. Okay, or if you use calculated, then you can define this attribute value based on other attribute value. Okay, for example, there is a first name and there is a last name attribute, and there is another attribute name, then and you want to store the full name in that name, so you can use the calculated value where you just concatenate the first name and the last name. Okay, so I am just selecting the stored one and hit OK. So this is created a name attribute. Similarly, there is another one which is age, and it is of integer field. Okay, so you can select integer, and By default it is giving me 0, but I don't want any default value. Hit OK. Now I wanted to add a validation for age, that age must be greater than 0. So how can I do that? So for that you have to go to this validation rule, where you have to select the value, the attribute that I want age, and you can give range here. So okay, so it can be greater than equal to 0, okay, and smaller than equal to, let's say, 100, and hit OK. Okay, so this is creating a validation rule where age can be greater than 0 or equal to or less than equal to 100. You can also give an error message for this if you want. Okay, so this is how we created an entity user. Let's suppose the user, we want to store their addresses. Okay, a user can have multiple addresses in that. So there we have to use a foreign key. Okay, so let's create another entity, and the entity called address, and let's store all of this, and create a new attribute. Let's call city. Yes, add1. It is a string of length. Okay, and store city here. Okay, so this is an entity address which has two attributes, the address line 1 and the city. Hit OK. Now I wanted to, I want to connect these two based on their relationship. How we can do that? So a user can have multiple addresses. Okay, so this is one to many. One user can have many addresses. Okay, but one address can belongs to a particular user. So let's create the mapping. So in order to create the mapping, we have to just select at the edge of this box and double click on it and create a link between them. So it is creating a link between user and address, and the link name is user address. And here you can see that there are types of relation. For example, one object address is associated with one user, so it is 1 to 1. Okay, and one address is associated with multiple user. Multiple address object are associated with multiple user. So I guess there is no available option for our requirement. So we have to change the direction of the arrow. Okay, it is many to one, but we have to change the direction. It is one to many. Okay, so one to many. Now one user object is associated with multiple. It means that one user can have multiple addresses. This is the correct mapping. So this is how we can create entity and link between them. Okay, so I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please do subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.